Good morning and welcome to the Treehouse. This is Kag with the View from Above tarot reading for Saturday, September 21st. This morning we're going to be doing a reflective reading, and I'm using my older Radiant Wise Spirit deck, which is a Pamela Coleman Smith Rider-Waite Smith deck. And I want to talk just briefly about what transpired this past week. It appeared that the cards wanted to tell a longer story, even though we went from one deck to the next. I think we used all 4 decks last week. And we got what seemed to me to be a continuing and unfolding story. So this morning, it is my intention to not continue that story, but the woman who is teaching me Advanced Tarot says the cards do have a mind of their own. But I also want to just talk a little bit about how the frame of reference that the reader is coming from really influences how she or he sees the cards in front of them. There are some readers who spend a lot of time talking about relationships, and my guess is that they are in the process of initiating or continuing or changing a primary relationship in their lives. And so that is sort of the frame of reference. My frame of reference is really about projects going forward. Obviously, my channel is something that is a project that I'm working on. And so I wonder when I do lay the cards out for the collective, how much of what I'm seeing in those cards is really reflective of what's going on in my life, which has to do with getting projects off the ground. And so my guess is that that is kind of what's filtering through to you. So it might be helpful to think about what projects you have in mind, because my guess is that these readings are going to continue to address projects. And that can be anything from finding a new job or finishing school, changing your residences, moving house, any of the projects that we do as a matter of making our lives reasonably happy. And so just kind of keep that in mind as you listen to my readings, because I have a feeling that that is really, because that's my frame, that is how I am seeing the cards. So the cards all have a plethora of meanings, and depending on how they are arranged next to each other, they are going to give us a different sense. So know that as you've listened to other readers, or as you have listened to me, that the cards have a number of different meanings. And again, it's about where they come in the spread and how they are related to other cards in the reading. So enough about that process. This is the reflective reading for today. Here is where we are. Here is our challenge, or what needs to be integrated. This is the frame from which we are coming. These are the past influences that play in this situation. Here is our conscious mind focus, and this is where we're headed moving forward, and the Merriweather card. And I have these 2 cards if we need further clarification. This morning, we are balancing 2 resources, or we are prioritizing things, and Pentacles being the cards or the suit of all of our physical resources and our mental resources and our financial resources, everything. There's some juggling going on this morning, trying to decide how to proceed on this Saturday. The challenge for today is justice, and justice is the card of legal issues sometimes, but mostly it's about consequences and karma. And so we had an eclipse earlier this week, so we might be feeling some of the effects of that eclipse, which is about mental and emotional integration itself. And I want to just point you back to the astrologers for more information about the eclipse. But it does have a power to it, and because it's an eclipse, there was a full moon, and that full moon was in Pisces, which also has its own sense of coming to fulfillment as we start to go dark and back to the new moon, which will be, I believe, in Libra. So anyway, go back out to the astrologers for more information about both the full moon and the eclipse that just happened to us earlier this week. our frame of reference is coming from a place of planning. And because our fellow on the top of the castle is looking out over the ocean, he sees a vast view. There are things that he cannot do. This one is bolted to the parapet. This one is free. So he wants to make plans. We want to make plans, but we have some restrictions that will allow us to have access to the world. And that is always true, right? We always have limitations that we have to face when we're thinking about what it is that we need to do and how we need to prioritize. And now we are looking at tutus. And tutus are crossroads, they're decisions, they're balancing things, they're thinking about things from a different perspective, but they are the planning phase. They come right after the aces, which are gifts of the particular suit that they represent, and the threes are the expansions that come after we make these decisions or we orient things in their priorities. So the past influences we have here is the Emperor. The Emperor is the sum total of all four of the kings. He has all of the wisdom, all of the logic, all of the fire and desire, all of the emotional stability, and all of the resources of all those kings. He is the guy that makes the final decisions. He is able to be benevolent to his people, and he has the last word on what's going on. And so this influence can either be an influence from outside of us or from inside of us. And depending on your situation, you might see this card as being a little bit different. Remember that this is for the collective, right? So take what resonates for you and leave the rest. So whoever this fellow is, it could be you, like I say, or it could be a father figure, a boss figure, but some energy of having the last word on what we're going to do here. And I guess when I think about the Emperor, I think about what this restriction is. And sometimes that can be a hard taskmaster when we come into the realization that here is something that cannot be moved. It's an immovable object. We can't actually have the total power of the Emperor going forward unless we can remove that obstacle. So take what resonates and leave the rest. So let's look at our conscious mind. Conscious mind is the moon. So there's something that we are dealing with some fear about. The moon is a reflection of the sun, and it is not having any lights of its own, which makes it more difficult for us to see, especially at night. If you've been driving at night, sometimes it's really hard to see where the road is going in particular. But we know if we slow down a little bit, we will be able to see what we need to see. But it's really hard to slow down. We want to run by those barking dogs because we are afraid. And so take a deep breath. If fear is kind of on your mind this morning about what's going on, remember that we have some consequences that we have to deal with, but we are coming from a place of making some plans, some restrictions, but we are able to make some plans, trying to figure out what to do with that. And as I think about this now, I'm wondering if we need our own internal emperor to give us permission to make that decision. Sometimes we have to give ourselves permission to move ahead and not wait for the universe to tell us what to do in particular. We've been handed an opportunity, but it's really up to us to decide whether we're going to take it. And so knowing that the Ace of Pentacles is that opportunity, perhaps we are juggling whether to take that opportunity and move forward, considering what those consequences might be. So if all of this energy moves forward, we are looking at a new project, and that is the Page of Pentacles, and he is basically really engaged with that project going forward. So knowing the limitations going into a project is really helpful. Having considered the consequences of what that decision is going to be is also very helpful. And when we start anything new, there is going to be a certain amount of, not fear and trepidation, but the unknown is going to be present. We can't always know what the end of that project is going to look like. And so we have to be able to be agile, to be able to respond to what happens to the project in the real world, because there are always limitations that we don't realize in the beginning. And so to have an agile attitude and reconnoiter, refigure, replan when obstacles come up. He has a great enthusiasm for this project. He is followed by the Knight of Pentacles, who has a tendency to be a little stubborn and get a little stuck. So if we know that that is kind of the next card after him, we can maybe get in front of the fact that if we know we are going to have to be agile and change when something doesn't go exactly as we had thought it was going to, we cannot be disappointed. We can just respond and not react and make whatever changes are absolutely necessary. To go back, we have the final say about what it is we're going to do. We always have the power to say no. And sometimes just knowing that we have the power to say no is enough permission to move ahead. The Merryweather card this morning is the Queen of Cups. Queen of Cups is the queen of deep intuition and emotion. She knows how she feels about what's going on. And when she looks at her cup, which is the most ornate in the deck, she is really focused on that cup. She tends to be a little emotional. And so perhaps this project or whatever's going on today taps into something that means a great deal to her. And so it may be helpful for us to just take a little bit of time and think about what are the emotional consequences of doing this project forward. What do we need to know about how we feel about this particular effort or where we're going with this? Sometimes our feelings get tamped down and we go, oh yeah, I'm not going to think about that. I'm just going to move ahead, right? We're just going to say, yep, I'm just moving forward. But I think as we've been talking about the no part, the answer could be yes, but I think it needs to be a yes that is taking into consideration how we feel overall about what it is we're doing. When we don't recognize what our feelings are, we can get in trouble. And so to take this opportunity to think about what restrictions those feelings are putting on us, what it is that we are afraid of, really thinking about what the consequences are. And if we have done all that, then that permission that's in our back pocket to say, yes, we can, then we move ahead with some assurance of success, as long as we can remember to be agile and respond to what we can't see coming, as opposed to react to what we don't see coming. So that's what I have for us today here at the Treehouse. Just briefly, we have 3 major arcana out of our 7 cards. We have 2 court cards and we have 2 twos. So we have cups, wands, pentacles. We have no swords. So swords being the suit of logic and wisdom. We do have a sword here in justice. So we do have all the energies here for today. So that's what I have here at the Treehouse this morning. If this reading was helpful, and I hope that it was, please like, share, and subscribe. And I invite you to come back again tomorrow here at the Treehouse, where we'll talk a little bit about the autumnal equinox, which happens tomorrow morning at 7:43 Central Daylight Time. Blessings.